Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Political Media Incorporated. Inside politics with outside-the-box thinking. And freepressers.com. News the mainstream media missed or buried. Broadcasting to free press-seeking citizens from the Free Press Foundation studios in the nation's capital. Welcome to Washington Expose. Bill Wilson, Larry Ward, and Carter Clues just so happen to be the only guys in Washington, D.C. not afraid to put the free back in freedom. Oh, you might want to clear the snowflakes out of the room for this one. Okay, it's time. We're about to grab the country by the flag and vaporize fake news.
Welcome to Washington Expose. I'm your host, Bill Wilson, and I'm joined as always by two of America's top political and messaging leaders, Carter Clues and Larry Ward. Well, guys, when you take the weekend and you kind of disconnect from the matrix and you don't let that slime infect your thinking, it's amazing that the reality of things starts to become clear. And the reality is this thing ain't close to over. Okay, I'm going to go through the situation with you real quick. And then Larry and Carter have really put together, I think, a very good comprehensive list of the many problems that the left will have to overcome if they're going to continue this steal. But we start with Arizona. When it started, we were down almost 100,000 votes. That's when Fox News and the other lapdogs of the CIA declared Arizona for Biden. But every day, that margin has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. Yesterday, when I went to bed, Trump was down 19,000 votes. This morning, he's down 17,000 votes. There's still several hundred thousand to count. We will, in the end, win the state of Arizona. And those 11 votes will shift from Biden the sock puppet to Donald Trump, bringing Biden down to 279. Then the fun begins, folks, because in Pennsylvania, Justice Samuel Alito has required the state to segment ballots that came in after November 3rd from those that came in on November 3rd. The reason is that the challenge will be that the state of Pennsylvania the governor does not have the power or right to alter enacted election law, which is what he did. Yep. And if, in fact, the law is upheld, Donald Trump will win Pennsylvania by 300,000 to 400,000 votes. And those 20 votes will go to him. Well, then they say, oh, but you're not there because of Georgia. Folks, Larry has some information. We're going to win Georgia on the recount or on the investigation. And Governor Kemp, get the hell off your ass. If you side with Larry Hogan or the rest of those quislings, you will end up like roadkill. Don't. Get in the game, bud, and help us. North Carolina.
What a rhino that guy is, Bill. It's disgusting. Incredible. What a weak one.
And then we go to two more here. Three more. We have Nevada, where it is extremely close, and where evidence of out-and-out voter fraud from California citizens is now rampant. We have Wisconsin, where the margin is only 20,000 votes, and where the Speaker of the House has stood up as the leader he is and is pushing back to get clean votes, audits, investigations. I can see Wisconsin flipping very easily. And the number of problems and bad software from the leftist-owned voting system, Dominion voting in Michigan, is so rampant.
Well, let's get into that. There's a lot to unpack here, guys.
Go for it, bud.
And I'm sorry, Carter. I'm chomping at the bit here. Look, there is
absolutely.
We uncovered the Washington Expose. Let me be clear. Exposed. Some really horrific stuff. We're calling it Glitchgate. #Glitchgate. And what happened on Friday night on Friday is the Antrim County in Michigan, the county that swapped the votes from inexplicably swapped the votes from Trump to Biden. It happened to be a deep red state, and there's a clerk over there who wouldn't let it go, and who pulled Antrim out of the count and then recounted, I believe, by hand, and gave Trump a decisive victory in that county where it was a Biden victory. And then she came out on Friday and said it was the software. So we started looking into the software company, or the computer company that was counting the votes. And lo and behold, there's a company called Dominion Voting Systems. Dominion Voting Systems. And I called Bill because Bill knows everything about the systems and knows a whole lot about how the vote mechanics work. And I said, Bill, this company, there's something about this, because it's in also 47 other counties in Michigan. And it rung a bell. And Bill, you said, and I'll say a congressman, but if you want to say who it is, that's fine. A congressman you were working for to do some audit after he lost in 2018. You ran across Dominion Voting Systems. What did you find?
Well, what we found was that a constant series of updates that were going. The algorithm was changing the vote as the vote was coming in. And so a vote would come in, they would pull it down, then they would reload it, would be different numbers. It was massive. And so as we looked at Dominion Voting, what we found was that it was a Canadian company working through a Colorado shell, because it's illegal technically for a foreign company to be engaged in American political administration. But they just used a U.S. shell company. And lo and behold, if you go 3-4 layers deep, what you find is that this company was purchased by George Soros.
There we go.
And what's worse is what subsequently come out over the weekend. Pelosi's family has financial interests in Dominion Voting.
So does Dianne Feinstein's.
Yeah.
Feinstein,
And so what we know here, and I got to tell you, I really don't want to name the member of Congress in this instance, but he was a leader. It was in South Dallas. And as we're looking at this, and it becomes very, very obvious that this agent from Dominion Voting was doing things that were not proper. So, for example, you're not allowed to have a laptop or an electronic connection to the internet inside the voting room. This guy did, okay? He took one in, constantly updating it. The day after the election, he gets on and he flies to Paris. And then he disappears in the bowels of the EU. So he could never even be investigated. So I'm telling you, folks, these voting systems are easily rigged, as this clerk in Michigan found. They are constantly able to switch votes, change an algorithm. And what we know is, where was the software developed? As it was released over the weekend, the CIA, as released to us by Edward Snowden, great American patriot, had developed a program called Hammer and Scorecard. And it is designed to do just what we saw done. And it is crystal clear that the systems were managed by partisan leftists, plutocrats, and that the program they were using was developed by Langley.
But
that
wait,
is what it appears.
But wait, there's more. There's more to this story. There's more to Dominion that we uncovered this weekend. And the guy who was the owner, John Paulos, is the owner of Dominion Voting Systems, was pulled out into Congress in January of 2020 because there were concerns that he was using foreign parts in his voting machine, a lot from China. It's just a head scratcher. But he was pulled up, in front of Congress, they were worried about it. And not only was Congress worried about it, but Texas specifically kicked Dominion voting out several times, because what they found was exactly what Bill was talking about. In 2019, Dominion voting got kicked out of Texas, and there is a document, an official document from Texas explaining why. Because and part of the reason, and this is going to be interesting, is because the straight party ballots were flipped, just like it was in Antrim. It was, quote unquote, a glitch. That's why we're calling it Glitchgate, a glitch where the straight party voting would be flipped in certain circumstances to the other party. Always to the Democrat, of course.
Always to the Democrat.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Larry, what you and Bill are saying makes me think that the most frightening word in the English language has now become algorithm. It's just frightening what they can do with algorithms, the artificial intelligence. It is simply, because this is total corruption. And think back, folks. Think back leading up to the election. Biden has dementia. People with dementia shout out things inadvertently that they know that normal people wouldn't say. And were they in a normal state, they wouldn't say. Remember him screaming at a crowd, "I don't need your votes." And we all thought at the time, what is it? Why would you say something like that? I don't need your votes, because he had already been told how this is going to work.
So he most extensive voter fraud operation in American history. Those were his words.
Those were his words. Exactly, Larry. Also, keep in mind, for the first time in my life, we saw no Democrat ground game. That's the one thing they're good at, is a ground game. They get out the vote ground game.
There's another factor here, guys.
And they didn't bother this time because they knew.
Right. And look, these anomalies only happened in the swing states. Okay. They had zero coattails, which is really unheard of. How do you see an 11-12 seat game by Republicans in the House of Representatives? How do you see the Republicans took over 2 states on Tuesday, Montana and New Hampshire? They took them over. They had gains in the state legislatures. Hey, Eric Holder, how you feeling, bitch? And then on top of it all of this is happening underneath. But oh no. In Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Atlanta was totally different.
450,000 votes found so far, plus that have the Joe Biden selected as president, and not a single mark on the paper elsewhere.
Absolutely impossible. And that's what Sidney Powell disclosed, I think, on Fox over the weekend. Brilliant woman. Brilliant.
She won't be on Fox again.
No, she will not be.
They will not. And matter of fact, I think Lou Dobbs is not long. They've already fired Jeanine Pirro this weekend because she was going to expose this. Fox News is in the tank. Do not watch Fox News anymore. If you want to watch Tucker, try and get a pirated version on YouTube.
But and you know that the important thing about that is, Larry, Mr. Carlson, Tucker Carlson, Hannity, Gutberg, leave. You don't need them. They need you.
I have been saying for ages, everything is shifting to YouTube. Everything is shifting on. You can set up your own network and overnight be bigger than Fox. That's where we are today.
Screw YouTube. Go to Rumble.
Yeah, go to Rumble.
Go to Rumble. Yeah.
Tucker to Rumble. Absolutely. Look.
But let me add a caveat there, please. For God's sake, get the people who own Rumble, who own Parler. Do the marketing. The American people have to know you're there. Then, by God, they'll be there for you. Of course, as Bill says, if you get Tucker to switch and Hannity, it's done. It's done.
Well, Parler, I will have a little bit of good news, and then we got to get back to this voter for it because there's a lot to cover. Because we just scratched the surface. Believe me, we just scratched the surface of what we discovered over the weekend. So Parler is now the #1 app on the Apple Store. That means in the entire world, every application, every stupid game they have, every social media app, it's ahead of Facebook. It's ahead of Google. Parler is the #1 app You can't go on Facebook right now. If you have a Facebook account, log on, you'll see everybody is putting their Parler account up. It is the growth. And we do, to disclosure, I do some work with Parler. Parler is absolutely blowing the doors off.
Larry, in full disclosure, the fact is you do more than some work with them. They owe this to you. They were nobody from nowhere until they came to you, and now they have this ascendancy. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter.
I certainly appreciate that, but no, I mean, they're in the right spot at the right time, and with the right product, and people trust them, and that's the thing, is it's the trust. They haven't told people what to say or what to think, and that's why that's all people want. They want to be able to say what they want and what they think. That's why they're growing. And look. We got to get back to the voter fraud, and I got to tell you more about Glitchgate, more about Dominion voting systems, because it gets deeper, and it gets deeper real fast. So Dominion Voting Systems has a parent company called Staple Street Capital. Staple Street Capital. Who is Staple Street? Anyone heard of Staple Street Capital?
Nope.
I have not.
Okay. Well, the owner of Staple Street Capital is a gentleman named William Kennard. That may strike a bell. William Kennard, from back in the Clinton days, he was the FCC chairman. From back in the Obama days, he was Obama's ambassador to the European Union. William Kennard, he's also was just after the election was just gifted the chairmanship of American Telephone Technologies, AT&T. He is the chairman now of AT&T. So William Kennard, chairman of AT&T, owns Staple Street Capital, which owns Dominion Voting Systems.
And is nothing more than an Obama foot soldier, a hack for Obama.
Obama Clinton. Yeah. Because here's the other thing. Dominion Voting Systems not only gave money to the Clinton Foundation, but was involved in a joint venture with the Clinton Foundation. Dominion Voting Systems. So this is the Clinton Foundation. This is the Obama machine. Is running our elections. I want that to sink in. They are running our elections. Running our elections. The Obama and Clinton machine is running our elections. And let me even bring it further. The Soros groups were running election security in the swing state.
Yeah.
George Soros. You know that guy, George Soros, who sold out Jews and was laughing about it. As a Jew, he was sold out Jews to the Nazis to make a living. That George Soros is running our election machines.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our election security.
And so look at that. Look at that and how horrible it is. And think about how close we are and what the mountain we have to climb to overcome this to get Donald Trump back in the White House. But then take one step back and consider, with every thieving asset they could lay their grubby, disgusting hands on, they still had to go this deep to steal. The American people were not willing to just roll over and get woke and be submissive to the mobs and the thugs. They stood up and they voted by the tens of millions against these traitors.
And Bill, you're so right. And we need to keep this in mind, folks, and fixate this in your mind. Donald Trump won this election by a landslide on election day. On election day, which, by the way, I need folks to read Robert Natelson's piece yesterday in the Epoch Times. Natelson is a great constitutional scholar, and add this into your mix, folks, because it is important, because we have to hit them from every angle. The same day clause of the United States Constitution and the 1948 Election Day law passed mandate that only votes cast on election day can be counted. Period. There is no question about this. So what is all this business of dragging it out? Look it up, folks. This same day clause of the Constitution, and then manifested by the 1948 law, established the day on which, and the word is appointed in the law, which means elected. Elections on that specific day, the first Tuesday following the first Monday of November. There's no question here. Every one of these ballots counted after Election Day is false.
Right.
Is false.
Let me also go in and let's dive in a little deeper to Georgia. 132,000 change of addresses. The change of address, national change of address, meaning you go and you move, and the postal system has a way to track the people who moved. It's called the National Change of Address Registry. When you're doing direct mail or you're mailing out ballots, you check the National Change of Address Registry and you forward the mail to the new address, right? Everybody's moved. Everyone has an understanding how this works. 132,000 change of address red flags are in where? Not just the whole state of Georgia, just Fulton County.
Wow. Atlanta.
Just Fulton County, Atlanta. Now remember, Fulton County was the one that had the water main break. Just like in the movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, every time they tried to pull some shenanigans in, the conspirators in Conspiracy Theory, they broke a water main. It was part of the movie Conspiracy Theory. I kid you not. Go rewatch it. It was so they broke a water main that wasn't even anywhere near them. It stopped the voting so they can add these 132,000 change of addresses into the vote. Biden only leads Georgia by 10,000. And let me tell you something, the 2 Senate races, which is why they did this, the 2 Senate races are going to flip. And at least Purdue is going to go ahead of the 50% mark, and we are going to protect the Senate if this is.
Well, and
they're going to recount there.
What's important about that, Larry, too, is that already today I'm seeing lefty so-called celebs out of Hollywood saying, I'm moving to Georgia for 30 days so I can vote for in the Senate.
Yeah.
They're telling people, get a residence in Georgia. They're giving you the game plan. They will flood Georgia with new people, 30 days. Register, vote, and then go back to whatever shithole they're from.
Whatever shithole they created. Keep in mind, these people turned California into a shithole. Yeah, exactly right. And I think so this, what you give us the states again that we believe are going to come out if they count the real ballots with the Trump victory.
Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, and I also believe Michigan. I believe all of those states.
Don't forget Arizona.
Arizona's still
Arizona.
Arizona's still counting, but Arizona, when they're done counting, I think is going to go to Trump. So we've got 5 states, easily landslide victory for Trump, which is what we predicted, by the way, on this show over and over again, because we were foolishly looking at the what we were seeing on the ground and real votes. The left was looking at fake votes, and we knew that was going to happen. But we said there's going to be a landslide victory if it's a fair election, and it wasn't a fair election, and they are cheating. And so the change of address in Georgia also has been proven in Nevada.
Correct. Oh, it's worse in Nevada. In Nevada, what you have are tens of thousands of effete, overpaid Californians who obviously are smart enough to know that if they spend full time in California, they'll be raped by their very own government.
Yeah. Have
second homes in Nevada.
There you go.
Now, they have most of them up around Lake Tahoe and Reno, but they're down in Clark County in Las Vegas as well. Those people have used their second home addresses to get mail ballots and voted. But they don't live there. It's not their residence. And so far, as of this morning, they'd identified 9,000 of those.
Well, here's an interesting Google telling on itself here. This is great. Google Trends Google Trends shows searches for election fraud punishment surged in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona.
Somebody worried, you think?
Before the election. So here's what happened. Because here's what happened. When they put out the words, you're going to have to cheat, to the foot soldiers who are going to have to be involved in cheating. They checked to see what kind of trouble they were going to be in.
Excellent.
I want to break in here a second. Here's something interesting. You were saying 132,000 in Fulton County?
Correct.
Okay. I just found an article, and I was just checking out what the change of address history is in Fulton County. In 2017, it says it reports that 45,000 registered voters had submitted national change of addresses for the previous 2 years. So if that's the case, if you split that in two, you're talking about 2% of the population of Fulton County had requested change of addresses. So you might be able to take that as a precedence. You tell me that 2% per year versus the 13%, by my numbers, 13%.
Well, 13% is what is the standard.
Wow.
Because look,
Wow.
in mail,
Excellent, Brian.
I expect
Excellent.
any list to be 5% off. Okay? I expect any list to be 5% off. But if I get a list that's 13% off, I go back and demand my money back.
Oh, yeah. No
Very
question.
good.
Absolutely
good,
no
Bill.
question. Yeah, absolutely right.
Very good. Very good. And folks, Larry has mentioned that we told you this was going to happen. I want you to think back 3 weeks ago when we first told you about Operation Red Mirage. Do you remember that? We told you specifically that John Mendelson, the executive director of Operation Mirage of a company called Hawkfish, had announced that they were undertaking Operation Red Mirage, which made it so no matter who won on election day, he said Trump will win on election day and we will win the 3 days later. This is all we warned you 3 weeks ago. And who do we say owns Hawkfish? Who did we say? We told you who financed Hawkfish. The former mayor of New York, Bloomberg. So this was all laid out. And let me ask you a question, Bill. If we knew this 3 weeks ago, if we disclosed it to our listeners 3 weeks ago, Operation Red Mirage, John Mendelson, Hawkfish, Bloomberg, all together, 3 days later they were going to win the election, Biden, if that played their hand in public, how come the RNC didn't know it and do something about it?
You are listening to the only podcast from the free world that actually frees the press. We'll be right back after this break. It's no wonder Americans are facing a crisis in the free press. Fake news, misinformation, outright lies. Since when did freedom of the press mean say anything without being held accountable? Isn't it ironic, really? The more the press says, the less free it becomes. That's why we've made FreePresser.com. 2020 is a whole new game in America, and you need to be on top of your game. FreePressers.com is your game changer for 2020. We believe a free press can only thrive in a competitive marketplace of ideas, just like the Founding Fathers wanted, not limited by groupthink. FreePressers.com has broken the news reporting mold and reinvented how news is reported. Free, fair, fearless. Visit www.freepressers.com and see for yourself how the game just changed. www.freepressers.com is the only way to free the press. www.freepressers.com.
You know, as sure as we're sitting here and watching our great nation burning, it's about time somebody comes along who can do something about it. If you're running for office or have something important to say that you want your fellow patriots to hear, Political Media Incorporated, they're the guys you want to turn to. They know how to play inside politics with outside-the-box thinking. It's amazing what political media can do to help your campaign or get your important message out. Heck, I like them because they've been protecting my Second Amendment rights for a good long time now. Visit politicalmedia.com today. That's politicalmedia.com. Again, politicalmedia.com. Inside politics with outside the box thinking. politicalmedia.com.
Free, fair, fearless. Put your seatbelt on, people. You're in for a ride to remember. The only podcast in the free world that actually frees the press.
If that played their hand in public, how come the RNC didn't know it and do something about it? How come Mitt Romney's niece didn't know it and step in?
Look,
how come we
guys,
didn't hear anything about it from her?
Now, here's why. While we're focused on the Quisling George Bush and Mitt Romney and other pieces of dog shit in the middle of the road, the fact of the matter is the entire structure of Republican Inc. has been running from this. So on Friday, a number of people on two different entities controlled central points of the GOP Inc. People went and requested and tried to get them to do things to support Republican state legislators in the affected states because they were being hammered. Starting Wednesday afternoon, Republican members of the Michigan legislature started getting 5 to 10 calls an hour from all over the country demanding that they commit to cast their electoral votes for Biden. Now, the question was, would you please at least do something to back these Republicans up, to help them, to give them some support? And do you know what the answer was from both of these entities? Nah, we can't do that. It wouldn't look. We have to think about protecting the brand.
That was from the Republican National Committee, right?
Yeah, and one of the associated organizations. And so what do we know? Before Trump, what was the brand of the Republican Party? It was that warmongering, blood-soaked, thieving crap called Bushism. That's what it was. And the people of the United States had rejected it in droves. There is no brand beyond the American First Trump brand. There is nothing.
It was the brand that nominated John McCain, who on October 8th of 2016 or 2012 surrendered to Obama, and Mitt Romney, who surrendered in the second debate. That was the brand.
Yeah.
That was the brand, right? 2008 for McCain, sorry.
Yeah, and their job has always been what they're doing now. It's to Me Too the global establishment. It is to Me Too this dictatorship cover, and to give you the illusion that there's actually a difference, that you have a choice. You have no choice with them. None. You get, what you get is the same garbage with a different wrapper on it. That's all.
That's all. And do you think, by the way, it's a coincidence that Big Pharma, Pfizer taking the lead, Big Pharma announced this morning that, we found a vaccine that's 90% effective.
We have a cure.
We now have a cure for COVID. Announced
Just give us a couple $400 or $500 billion and we'll make it all safe to be live again.
And scientists have come out and said COVID's really not that big of a deal.
COVID's never been a big deal.
Yeah, they've already come out and said that. Yep.
And finally, they're admitting it after the election. You think that's good? Remember, folks, what we've said from the first day of this show on politics, there are no coincidences.
But, there was one good thing over the weekend. Yes, I mean, as we had predicted months ago, suddenly pandemic is disappearing as the lie it always was. And yet, here's what we know. Over the weekend, the Biden supporters, got their walkers and went out to Black Lives Matter Plaza in D.C. to celebrate that the AP had called it for the sock puppet. And after about 20, 30 minutes, a large contingent of black looters and murderers, BLM, showed up and pushed them aside and told them, no, this isn't yours. Forced them to raise their arm in the equivalent of the modern Nazi salute, the fist in the air. And that and those that were pushed and bullied and made to leave.
Good.
So
Good.
This was a message from their street thugs that you're not putting us back in the can. We're out, baby.
Oh, well, not only that. Look, if you were wondering, would Democrats really try to do this? Would Democrats really be so brazen to go ahead and try and steal the election from the American people? Would they try to get away with this? Let me ask you something. This is the same Democrat Party that emptied the jails during COVID, that supported the riots and looting.
Mm-hmm.
Shut down.
This is the same Democrats that supported the violence on the streets against cops and against Republicans. This is the same Democrat Party that locked us down in governor-run states. This is the same Democrat Party that sent COVID patients into nursing homes. Shit, yes, they would not only put the American people in a position where their election was complete fraud. That is what they intended to do from the beginning. They could not put up with another Trump president, another 4 years. Another 4 years, they're all going to jail.
Yeah,
and that's
precisely
what's going to happen.
Well
and look,
said.
I'm glad. I'm actually, for the first time, I'm actually happy that the Democratic governors have emptied out the prisons for COVID. I'm happy because now we have room for their asses.
Well said.
No,
Well
but
said.
look, folks, and here's the point. They are counting on this, but it's real. They know that they're totally prepared to go to war. They're totally prepared to burn the cities and beat people up and engage in violent civil insurrection. They're betting that we won't. They're betting that we as better people will want to avoid that to the very end. And in point of fact, anybody with kids or grandkids, you want to avoid that. But they are laying the marker that says either you fight back or you surrender. You're done. And that's why right now, heroes like Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, who are leading the charge to fight this thing, have to be supported. If we fight, if we do not blink, we will win this. And if you want to stop, take another minute and just sit back and think, what do we have? All right. Trump was never supposed to win in 2016. That was an anomaly. They lost control and the American people asserted themselves. And what have we gotten for it? Well, globalism has been set back not 4 years, maybe a decade or more, because we have removed ourselves from international orders. We have exposed it. We've cut their funding, and we have just rendered them in many places inert. Thousands and thousands of regulations that had been imposed on the American people by Bush and Clinton and Obama have been removed. Thousands. In the Environmental Protection Agency alone, we have eliminated whole chapters of their constricting death. We have 3 new Supreme Court justices, 3, and 2 of them look like they may be pretty damn good.
Yep.
There are over 300 new federal judges that are not related to George Bush or his treason. But the biggest of all, and that's from this election, and I think it's the biggest thing that we have to be proud of and recognize, is that tens of millions of our fellow citizens have had the gauze taken away from their eyes, and they see this government for what it is. They see that the FBI is nothing more than a private thug army of the establishment. They see that the CIA, beyond just, they're not content to just kill people around the world and destabilize governments to benefit the globalists, is willing to do it to us too. All right. And we're seeing that big media and academia and Hollywood, that they're all part of the game to keep you in the matrix. Break out of the matrix, folks. Don't ever let them put you back in that box, ever.
And Bill, let me add something about the FBI. Folks, Hannity notwithstanding, the FBI is not one or two or three bad guys at the top and wonderful agents throughout. They're scum, top to bottom. Let me tell you something. If you work for an organization that you know is thoroughly corrupt and betraying the principles of the United States, you don't keep working for them. Don't trust any FBI agent on the face of this earth. If they ask you what day it is, tell them, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, worse, refer them to a lawyer.
Yeah.
And do never talk to those people without a lawyer. Don't tell them the date without a lawyer.
Nothing.
And so that's where we are, folks. I think so that if the worst would happen and it ends today, we have achieved massive amounts of good. But we do have the opportunity to win this. We just have to be strong. We just cannot blink. And we have to demand that the rule of law be upheld. And if that is the case, then Joe Biden can go back to his basement, sit there in his boxer shorts and eat his pudding as long as he wants, because he's done.
Well, there's a new video that just appeared. I believe it's CNN calling the race on and going through all the states here between 10:22 p.m. and 10:23 p.m. on election night. 10:22 p.m. Trump votes 1,690,000. 10:23 p.m. 1,670,000. He lost 20,000 votes within a minute on live television.
What state was that, Larry?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
There you go. There you go. Look, Larry, you said you want to see these governors in jail. I want to see the governor of this state, Tommy the Commie Wolf, on a scaffold. I
think these acts have been treasonous, and I think the penalty for treason should be executed.
Yeah.
And look, I want to be clear, and I am absolutely dead against weaponizing the federal government. Dead against it. I'm not talking about weaponizing the federal government. I'm talking about enforcing laws. And I want to see every single person. There were 9,000 people, Bill, that you said, voted in Nevada illegally from California. Those 9,000 people need to be arrested.
Yeah.
Those
committed felonies, and
not just the organizers. The people who committed voter fraud need to be arrested and charged with a felony.
Yeah.
It'll stop them from doing it again. It's the only way.
Somebody has to start paying for law breaking in this country. We know that 90% of the rioters who burned down our cities here over this year have been released. 90%. Nobody answers for law breaking anymore. This has got to stop. If you're not a nation, if you don't have the rule of law, you have no nation at all. It's very simple. It's very simple. By the way, Bill, you mentioned the crowds gathering at, quote, BLM Plaza in Washington and BLM Avenue in New York, so designated by de Blasio. Here's something interesting. They all gathered out there, arm in arm, shouting their epithets. It was very ugly, by the way, at thousands of them. And Fauci had nothing to say about the danger of COVID. Same Fauci who came out for Biden and said how dangerous Trump's rallies were, and who told us, don't you dare, if you have more than 3 people at your house for Thanksgiving, you're all going to die. You're all going to die. What the hell? When is this man going to be taken to the scaffold? Hitler killed his millions. Fauci's killed his tens of millions. Hundreds of thousands in this country alone, and not of COVID, of his phony hoax, of his Milgram factor.
Right.
And when Rand Paul asked him, remember during the riots and all these people in the streets, and Rand Paul said to him, Aren't you going to say anything about the danger of COVID? That's not my job. I'm a doctor. I don't bring up that. Well, he did it for my Thanksgiving this year. He did it for Trump rallies. Folks, this is a traitor. This man's a traitor. 100 million people have died in Africa, starvation, disease, not COVID. They hardly have any COVID in Africa because this man perpetrated a hoax that cut off medical aid and food to Africa, desperately needed now for 8 months.
Right. So again, this is the end game for the other side. They know they're losing. So we have leaders who temporarily had power in Italy, Matteo Salvini, who will come back and take over. You have conservative populists, people who care about their people and their country in Poland and Hungary and Austria. And they know they can't let that spread. They know. And Trump was the leader of it. And so they're thinking, well, maybe if we cut him out, these others will melt. I don't think so. I think the idea that we're going to submit to this global banking trash has got to end. And we need to, they're gone. They have to be gone. And if that means we get rid of their bogus paper money and go back to a hard currency, that wouldn't be so bad. In fact, that'd be pretty good.
Absolutely. And Bill, who's our sometimes we're tough on people, and rightly so, but somebody deserves kudos, a politician that at times we have been tough on. But who's this politician now who we were discussing
I say
earlier?
a standing ovation more than kudos.
I have to tell you, and I was never a fan of this man, but Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, has stood up and deserves the praise and thanks of every patriot. Not only did he say right after, like a day and a half after the election, that he would stand with President Trump, he gave him $500,000 out of his campaign fund to help pay for lawyers. But it just more recently, he has stood up, bucked the George Bush trash in the party and said, no, there's too much here. Do not concede this election. This is not finished. That gave leadership to something that, frankly, we had no reason to expect. And folks, that is the key. The key to all of this, the key to moving forward, the key to fighting back is leadership. People who will stand up and say what is right and do what is right and encourage others to follow them. It is so rare. And so for that, Senator Graham, major thank you.
Incredible. And remember, Lindsey Graham Unleashed is a ferocious weapon.
Yes.
We have Kavanaugh because of what Lindsey Graham did at the Senate Judiciary Committee. He was a stalwart. I'll never forget the reporters crowding around him coming out of the Capitol. And, what do you think? Why did Kavanaugh do this? Why isn't this terrible? And he turned to him and said, well, how about this? Why don't we just take him out and stone him? It was superb. They were speechless. So Lindsey Graham Unleashed a pretty powerful weapon. I'm proud of the man. Absolutely.
Yeah, he really has. I've run campaigns against him, multiple campaigns against him, and I will say, Lindsey, mea culpa. You've come a long way. And look, there's one more thing that has to be mentioned, and we have to talk about the networks calling the race for Biden. And I want you to understand what happened on Saturday morning and why it's important, why we are closer to victory than ever. And the media calling the race for Biden, including Fox, was a positive, not a negative. And the positive was, and how could you say that? I mean, they called the race. Everybody thinks Biden won. They're already throwing him parties. They're planning his inauguration. He's transitioning. No. He might be transitioning, but that's a whole other conversation.
That's another issue. Go ahead.
Right.
Transitioning,
But the reason they called the race, and let me explain what happened the night before with on Friday night when Alito from the Supreme Court said you have to move votes. You have to segregate votes that came in after Election Day and count them separately. And I want to know what that count is. That in itself, that one thing should have prevented the networks from calling the race on Saturday morning.
Correct.
Yep.
It would have slowed them down. If we're talking about a regular situation, they would have said, well, the Supreme Court is intervening. We're going to have to wait on Pennsylvania. They didn't wait on Pennsylvania race for Biden on Saturday morning. And they did that because on Friday night, Washington Expose and some others started pointing the finger at Dominion voting systems. And they panicked. If this story had been covered and they wouldn't have called the race, it would have been over for Biden. So they had to give him the air of invincibility, the air of the air of inevitability. And
as always, Larry, they're setting up the next narrative. They always look not at the narrative they're working today, but what narrative might they need tomorrow. Okay. And so if the truth comes out, Trump wins Arizona, flips Wisconsin, flips Pennsylvania, when we know that Georgia's a fraud, have Nevada, have Michigan, and Trump is elected. What they are setting up is the he stole it narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And again, back to Nancy, it's an illegitimate administration. Anything they do is illegitimate.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. The only illegitimacy is the mafia princess who runs the house.
Yeah. And a senile 85-year-old woman propped up by plastic surgery still calling the shots, which, by the way, I think will end very shortly. I think that die is cast. That woman is out the door, and hopefully once she loses her purpose.
And what a bad investment she made in Dominion voting systems. Look, she thought her investment in Dominion voting systems would have protected her House, would have protected her speakership, but it didn't. The Republicans won. Yeah. They didn't give a crap about Pelosi.
No. Wipeout. Bill, before we go, Bill, what's the latest on the House Representatives count right now?
As of right now, it looks like the R's will come in with 214. That's 4 short of a majority. There are 1, maybe 2 that are still out there, but so figure
Nick Freitas will flip the seat.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's a big number to flip. But, I'll take your word for it. I hate the idea of having that CIA hag representing anything, let alone a district in Virginia. But, it's close. And the beauty of close, but not the majority, is that they're not responsible for the outcome. The speaker and the majority is responsible for the outcome. They're the ones responsible, but they don't have the ability to do it. All right. 3, 4 people. They have a COVID attack on 4 of their members. They lose. 4 of their members get pissed off at her for some reason or another, and they flip to the Republican on the rule, and they lose.
Done.
No. Yeah. They've got serious problems. They have to have 100% support of their caucus in a caucus that is nothing more than 6 or 7 tribes that all hate and mistrust each other.
And 4 angry women who have 4 angry women who have already called Pelosi nothing but a racist.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the Ocasio-Cortez crowd. That must make for a nice get-together every week in conference.
Seriously. And so it gets down to it. They say, Ocasio-Cortez and her coven will never support with the Republicans. They don't have to. All they have to do is not show up. That's it. Bam.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, I think what Ocasio-Cortez will depend on what her hormonal imbalance is doing at that moment. She operates on hate, and if at that moment her hormonal imbalance tells her hate Pelosi, she will side with the Republicans, folks. This is not a woman of bar hoppers are not people of conscience.
No.
Take it from me as a former drunk. Yeah.
So everybody, as you can see, no reason to despair. Worst happens, we're still ahead of the game and we're doing great. The best is going to happen. And we believe that. I believe it. I know Larry and Carter do. We believe it in our souls that the best is going to happen. And that then you will get Trump unchained. And if you thought he was bad before, wait. Just wait for 4 years.
Vengeance is mine. Thus saith the Donald.
There's no more pure emotion on this planet than revenge. And so with that happy, uplifting note, let us end it for today and urge you to please go to WashingtonExpose.com, freepressers.com. Join us every day. Help us to build the army that will take back America and then start the hard work of holding these traitors accountable. Thank you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Washington Expose, featuring Bill Wilson, Larry Ward, and Carter Clues. Powered by the Free Press Media Group and sponsored by anyone who's fed up with fake news and corporate media. Want to know more? Check out www.freepressers.com.